Abarth, the performance arm of Fiat, has got to transition to electric power. Now, it's a controversial move. Some people think that this is a sporty brand. It shouldn't be moving to electric power, but it's got to go with the times. We've already had the Abarth 500e. This is the second vehicle from the company. It's the Abarth 600e, and it's the most powerful production Abarth we've yet seen. Okay, so if the Fiat 600e is all about a sort of cutesy, cheeky appearance, the Abarth is quite a lot meaner, with only a few little styling changes to make it stand out, but it's quite an impressive overall appearance. So for example, it has exactly the same LED headlight clusters as a Fiat 600e with this little hooded arrangement here, but the whole car looks a bit meaner because basically of the changes that are down below sort of add up to give it that extra aggression. Two of the biggest are the obvious ones. This is this Abarth lettering across the front of the car here, and then the classic Scorpion badge on the bonnet. But then the main one is the air intakes and air dam down here. Now, they're not actually feeding any air to an engine because, of course, this is an electric car, but it just gives the car a load of presence, a load of meanness, and it adds up to a very effective whole. The car looks a lot meaner on first impression than the Fiat 600e. Along the sides of the car, we've got a few more changes that we can talk about compared to a Fiat 600e. The most obvious one is these massive alloys. They're 20-inch here. They are shod with Michelin Pilot Sport tyres. They're 225/40 R20s. Now, as this is a Scorpionissimo model, that's the more powerful 280 horsepower one, it also gets painted brake calipers in here that you can just see peeking out behind the wheel. Looks like a centre lock wheel, but we saw on the presentation that there appeared to be 4 studs behind it, so let's call it a centre lock, you'd be generous to them. But it's a nice looking alloy wheel. That's the first obvious change. You've then got the Scorpion electric badge, so that's a mix of Abarth's heritage, the Scorpion logo, and then this sort of lightning emblem that goes through it to show that this is an electric car. It's a new era of Abarth performance. A lot of black detailing. Again, for the Scorpionissimo model, you don't get it on the standard 600e, which they call the Turismo in certain markets. We've got this Abarth lettering along the bottom of the doors here as well, which is another nice little touch and very sort of retro 80s look to it, but it works and it really does give the car a nice amount of presence. That's notwithstanding the fact that this one is painted in this fabulous purple colour, which is lovely. I mean, really, look at it. It's a great looking car. So yeah, along the sides, again, nice little changes made. Okay, at the back of the car, some lovely little touches to talk about. So we'll start at the top with this spoiler. You've got vents cut into it, 4 vents there to let air flow through. But it's designed to look like the old classic, I think it was the 695 Abarth, the competition one that had its bonnet propped up permanently here to let the engine run a bit hotter and get more cooling air in there. It was always a really cool look. So the reason this is quite flat is it's supposed to hark back to that car. So you've got a big Scorpion badge on the top of it as well, but that's a big difference from the 600e because you don't have anything like that on the Fiat version. You have the Abarth badge here that shows you that it's the high performance version of the crossover and not just the Fiat model for getting around town. And then down at the bottom, we've got this large black lower bumper area. We've got the Scorpion logo central again. Looks like a nice diffuser here in the centre. No exhaust, of course, because this is an Abarth that's electric powered. There's no engine, so that's a big change from recent models from this company. But overall, again, great looking thing. Plenty of purpose to it. You can see it's a sporty looking version of the car. We like it. I think it's really good. Okay, here we are inside the Abarth 600e. This is a Scorpionissimo model, so this is the slightly more upmarket one. And one of the things you get in here are these Sabelt bucket seats. These are really nice, really supportive. You get good seats in the standard Abarth 600e, but these are really worth having. They're a step up. There are a few other things that are a little bit different as well. There's a Mind the Scorpion logo here on the felt flap thing. Same over there on the dashboard. You get Abarth written on the dashboard over there as well. You also get, in both models, you get a sports steering wheel here with some microfiber on it in yellow stitching and the yellow 12 o'clock mark. And then they change a few of the displays in the 10.25-inch infotainment and the 7-inch driver's display. If you go through the modes, as we discussed, there's Turismo, Scorpion Street and Scorpion Track. The display in here changes through the various different modes. And then up here on the main center screen, you have specific readouts that you only get in the Abarth 600e that you wouldn't get in the Fiat version. One of them is this page that shows things like racing and your timers and G-forces. There's gauges for power, battery level, battery temp and the voltage, torque, where it's distributing the torque at any given moment. And then there's the sound generator, which we can talk about a little bit later. So it's a nice, you know, it's uprated from the Fiat 600e's cabin. It's still got a few places that are a bit, you know, some of the plastics are a little bit built down to a cost. We've still got some of the practicality issues of a standard 600e. Not a lot of room in the back. You don't get a massive boot. It's a nice enough place to spend some time, and it does feel that little bit more special thanks to the wheel and these Sabelt seats alone. So it's a good place to be, but not flawless. So one thing the Scorpionissima gets that the standard 600e Abarth doesn't get, the Turismo as it's called in some markets, is the engine sound generator. Now this has been quite controversial on the smaller 500e, where it makes a very thick, cloying, buzzy noise, not for everyone. It's the same thing here, so we'll switch it on. Can you hear that? So there's a low booming noise, and if you now rev the throttle, it kind of simulates an exhaust note of an old Abarth. It's not going to be to all taste. Some people are going to switch this straight back off, or they might even pick the Turismo on the strength of the fact that you don't get that. But actually, we think they've improved it from the 500e. It sounds a little bit more natural, a little bit less annoying and irksome. And we were on track earlier on in a Scorpionissima, and actually we preferred it with the sound generator on, because it does add a little bit of drama to the performance and the speed of the car. So it's going to split opinion, that is. But if you want it, you need the top spec car, because you can't get it on the basic Abarth 600e, even as an option. Here we are in the Abarth 600e. This is a Turismo model. This is the 240 horsepower version. There is obviously the 280 horsepower Scorpionissimo, which is slightly more powerful. Obviously, it's got a few extra bits of kit, it gets slightly different seats, gets a few extra bits of trim in here. But broadly, they're pretty much the same car. And Abarth has done quite a lot of work in improving the standard Fiat 600e. So it's strengthened all of the suspension settings. It's, you know, it's retuned and recalibrated all the suspension. You get Alcon 380mm brake discs, so you've got more powerful stopping power. And then there's a JTEC limited slip differential. It's mechanical, it's a torque sensing one. So that's fitted to the front axle. So as well as that, you also have the 20-inch alloys with Michelin Pilot Sport tyres, plenty of grip. So they've done quite a lot of work on getting this car to feel a lot different to the standard Fiat 600e. And the good news is it's worked, because this is really good fun to drive. So we've been on track already in the Scorpionissimo, which is obviously more powerful, and you know, we've really enjoyed throwing it around, and it can enact quick direction changes without getting flustered. You know, it's got good steering, it feels enjoyable. There's the fake noise in the Scorpionissimo, which you don't get in this standard 600e, but that actually brings a little bit of entertainment and enjoyment to the thing. So to drive, it's great fun. So now we're out on the road to see how the car stacks up as normal. First thing is, ride quality's fine. You know, it's not that firm, quite quiet. You don't get a lot of road noise. There's not a lot of wind noise rustling over the car. It's actually really sort of discreet and comfortable and quiet. We're doing 90 kilometers an hour now, and very grown up, very mature. And actually rides a bit better than the standard Fiat 600e, so that's a bonus. Like any Stellantis electric, you have more power the different drive modes you're in. So here they're called Turismo, which is your base setting. Then there's Scorpion Street, which is actually what it defaults to. That's almost like normal. And then there's Scorpion Track, which is the sportier, faster setting where you get full power. You get 110 kilowatts in Turismo in this 240 horsepower car, so that's 150 horsepower and 300 Newton meters of torque. When you step it up to Scorpion Street, you get 150 kilowatts, I'll get that right, 150 kilowatts, 204 horsepower. And then in its top mode, that's where it gives out the full 240 horsepower. But it's making its peak 345 Newton meters of torque in either of those top two modes. This car will do 0 to 100 km/h in 6.2 seconds. And the top speed of both of them is 200 kilometers an hour. If you want a little bit more speed and a little bit more power, you need the Scorpionissimo, because that has 140 kilowatts basic, that's 190 horsepower. Then it steps it up to 175 kilowatts, I think, which is 231, or 170 kilowatts, 231 horsepower. And then it gives its full 280 horsepower in Scorpion track. And that is the most powerful Abarth that's ever been on the road. It'll do 0 to 100 km/h in 5.85 seconds. And yeah, the power delivery is great. I mean, if you're in basic Turismo mode, it's quite a long throttle. You do need to prod it down quite a long way to get the car to respond. But you can override that with kickdown. If you absolutely flatten the thing, the car will accelerate at full power. But if you're in Scorpion Street or Scorpion Track, even this 240 horsepower model has got more than enough performance for what you would need on the roads. And it's just a very nicely sorted car. I mean, it doesn't lean. We don't get a load of lean in the corners. You can really feel that torque end differential at the front helping out in the corners. You can get on the throttle nice and early so that, you know, you're really getting traction out of the bend and getting a load of speed onto the next straight. It delivers its power nice and smoothly. It's one of those electric cars with a really good calibration of power delivery. It's really actually very impressive. It does feel like one of the more engaging and entertaining electric vehicles to drive, despite the fact it's compact and it's based on a fairly sort of safe and humdrum but regular car. So yeah, when you've got the car and you're really sort of barreling into a few bends, it doesn't get caught out very easily. It's nicely balanced, it's got loads of grip, got loads of traction. We don't get roll and pitch and dive, and you can feel that torque end diff at the front really helping out in the corners. You can get on the power nice and early and the car tightens its line. When we were on track earlier on, it was really moving around quite a lot on track as well. You could adjust the car on the throttle and you could feel it sort of moving side to side. It's really good fun. It's actually really deserving of the Scorpion badge, which is something that we're really pleased to report. But it's a nice car as an electric vehicle goes. You know, it cruises quietly, it cruises comfortably. We've got, you know, nice calibration of the controls, even if you're not in Scorpion Track or Scorpion Street. So Turismo's almost like an eco mode. You know, you get very much lighter steering. Car's got, you know, less response at the front end. And as I said earlier on, the throttle response is a bit long. But still very decent to drive. It's quick enough when you start squeeze on the thing. You see you've got 300 Newton meters here. So it's still quick enough to pick up, like, roll on there from like 100 kilometers an hour is pretty decent. Yeah, there's not very much about this car that we dislike, to be honest. We were coming here with various expectations, having driven the standard Fiat 600e, but this is really quite impressive. And although you can't hear it in this car, the fake engine sound, the engine generator, they call it, engine sound generator, I think is its proper name, that is not as offensive in this car, in the 600e, as it was in the smaller 500e. It's still not brilliant, it's a bit buzzy, it's a bit thick. It will annoy some people, and there'll be plenty of people who would just turn it off and never use it. But we actually found it did add something to the on-track experience in the Scorpionissimo, so it was like, actually, it's not so bad. So I suppose the only thing really that you could possibly criticise this car for is it has the same 54 kilowatt gross, 51 kilowatt hour usable battery as the standard 600e. So the minute you put a more powerful electric motor onto it, whether you're, you know, buying the standard 600e or the Scorpionissimo, you're obviously going to get less range. The standard car the Fiat does about 400 kilometers to a charge. This one's going to be more like 330 kilometers, somewhere around there per charge. So real world, you're then starting to look at 250 kilometers per charge Is that enough? I don't know. Depends on if it's your only car or if it's a fun EV, but that's a whole different conversation. But in terms of the engagement of the driving process and the way they've calibrated it and the feel and the enjoyment that it can serve up, we're really, really impressed with the Abarth 600e. It's a great little thing. It's one of the better EVs to drive that's out there right now. When it comes to the braking power, as we say, they've got uprated brakes, these Abarth 600es, I should say. I should stop saying just 600e. There's Fiat and there's Abarth. So the hotter Abarth has got uprated Alcon brakes. Now, the car only weighs about 1.6 tons. So it's not a very heavy EV. That's one of the benefits of having a smaller battery pack. The brakes are excellent. They're really, really good. The pedal feel is good between the blend between regenerative and between actual friction braking. It's very sort of natural feeling, and they've got plenty of stopping power for what you need them to do. There is the option to put a greater level of regenerative braking on. I've just done it now, so the car is slowing down itself. It's almost one pedal driving you can do here. And that's judged pretty well as well. So, you know, in terms of it accelerates very nicely, it also decelerates very nicely. It's just a nicely tuned and set up car. It's just good in a lot of different disciplines. Overall then, our first impressions of the Abarth 600e are very, very positive. What they've done here is they've taken a fairly unremarkable crossover in the 600e electric, and they've injected a real sense of style and fun and driver engagement into it. It's got a good chassis, it's got good performance, it handles really nicely, looks great, you know, we really like it. We think it's a really good car. There's a few issues with practicality and range, but if you want something that's going to put a smile on your face, this is a great car to choose.